Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to the online teaching academy Ekalaiva. Class 8 Social Science. Every government has three organs, isn't it, children? They are the legislature, the executive and the judiciary. So, in this about the union legislature, you have already read in the previous chapter. But now we are going to see about the union executive. Here you can see the images of some of the important persons of our country, and they are none other than the president, the vice president and the prime minister. Who is our president, children? Yes, who is our president? Mr. Ramnath Kovind is our president, right? So, Mr. Ramnath Kovind is our president and Mr. Venkaiah Naidu is our vice president. And we all know that who is our prime minister? Mr. Narendra Modi. Okay. So, we know the president and the vice president and the prime minister. So, under the prime minister we have council of ministers too. So, all these persons comprise together and form the executive branch of our government. Okay. And what is the responsibility of this union executive, children? What is the foremost responsibility of this executive branch? They will enforce, this executive branch will enforce the laws made by the legislature and execute them and then runs the administration of the country. Okay. And our Indian constitution provides for a parliamentary system of government. So, we have two types of executive. The one is the nominal executive and another one is the real executive. So, who is the nominal executive and who is the real executive? So, let me say the prime minister is the real executive of our country, whereas the president is the nominal executive. So, first of all, we will see about the president and his powers and then we will move on to the prime ministers. Okay. So, let us begin with the president. Okay. So, he is the head of the state. So, the president is the head of the state and he is the chief commander of the Indian armed forces. So, armed forces means it includes the army, navy and air forces too. Okay. So, the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed Indian forces, the Indian armed forces. And all the executive powers are vested in the president. So, we are going to see about this executive powers of president in the upcoming slides. Okay. So, all the executive powers are vested in the hands of the president. And he is a titular head and he is bound by the constitution and acts upon the advice of the prime minister and the council of ministers. Okay. So, listen here, children. So, what does this titular means? Titular means nominal. Okay, the president have the nominal power. He is a nominal head of our country. Okay, so even though the president has some powers, they are limited. Okay, so they are limited. So, all these powers of the president will put into practice only if the president and only if the prime minister and the council of ministers advise him to do so. So, the president will act upon to the advice of the prime minister and the council of ministers. And now we are going to see about the process of election to the office of the president. Okay. So, the president is elected by the electoral college. So, what is this electoral college and who are the people who will be there in that electoral college? So, the electoral college consists of members of Lok Sabha and members of Rajya Sabha and the state legislative assembly So, state legislative assembly members of all the states and union territories. Okay. So, the electoral college consists of the members of Lok Sabha, members of Rajya Sabha and the legislative assembly members of all the states and union territories. So, the elections to the president is indirect. Okay, the election to the president is indirect. Okay, so the election to the president is always indirect. So the president is elected directly by the elected representatives and indirectly by the people. And now we are moving on to see the eligibility to become a president. Okay, so a candidate must not be less than 35 years of age and must be qualified to become a member of Lok Sabha. So, what is the age limitation? 35 years of age, and then the person must be qualified to become a member of Lok Sabha, and also the candidate should not hold any post under the government sectors at any level of the government. So, we have three levels of government, children. One is union government, another one is state government, and the last one is self-government, local self-government. Okay. So, the candidate must not hold any post under the government sectors at any level of the government. So, that is also there. And now we are going to see about the terms. Okay. So, what is the term of the president? So, the term of the president is 5 years. Okay. So, the president of India is elected for the term of 5 years unless removed early by the parliament for violating the constitution. So, what is the term of the president, children? It is for 5 years. Okay. So, 5 years. So, the term of the president is 5 years, and unless the president can be removed early by the parliament. Okay. So, removal of president is not a simple issue, children. So, the president can, the parliament has the power to remove the president from his or her office for violating the constitution. So, simply they cannot remove the president from the post. So, it has lot of process. Okay. So, the process through which the president can be removed from the post is called as impeachment. So, for that the parliament have to pass the impeachment motion in the parliament. Then it has to get the 2/3 of majority from the both of the houses of our parliament. So, all these process are there. Okay. So, this is what. So, the terms of president is for 5 years and unless removed early by the parliament for violating the constitution. Okay. So, we all know about the first president of the free independence India, isn't it? So, who was the first president of free independent India? Dr. Rajendra Prasad. We all know that, isn't it? So, once the 5 years completed, what happened? The president can be re-elected. So, the Rajendra Prasad was the only president who was re-elected for the second term also. So, he was continued to be in his office from 1950 to 1962. So, he was the only president who was elected, who was re-elected for the second term. And now we are going to see about the powers of the president. So, it is categorized into 4 types. One is the legislative powers, and then the executive powers, judicial powers, and the emergency power. So, one after the other we are going to see what all these powers and all. Okay. Okay. So, first of all we are going to see about the legislative powers of the president. So, the first one is summon either or both house of the parliament. Okay. So first one, summons. What is this summon? Summon means calling the all the members of the parliament to meet. So the president have the power to call all the members of the parliament to meet for a session. So he can call all the members of parliament for meet for either or both houses for the session, and he can nominate the members to the parliament. So regarding this, we have already learnt in the previous chapter itself. So the president can nominate 2 members from the Anglo-Indian community to the Lok Sabha, and of course 12 distinguished citizens to the Rajya Sabha. So the president has the power to nominate the members to the parliament and prorogue a session of either or both houses of the parliament. So what is this prorogue? Prorogue means terminate, or he can end up the session of either or both house of the parliament. Okay. And then the next one, address the first session of the Lok Sabha. Okay. And the next one is, the president have the power to give or withhold the assent to the bill passed by the parliament. So we have already read in the previous chapter about how the bill becomes a law. So the bill becomes a law only after getting the signature from the approval from the president. Okay, so the president has the power to give assent to the bill, or he can withhold the bill passed by the parliament. Okay, and he can dissolve the Lok Sabha. So he can dissolve the Lok Sabha also. Then promulgate ordinance when the parliament is not in session. Okay, and that is pass the temporary parliamentary acts. Okay, so promulgate means propagate. So the president can propagate the law when the parliament is not in session. So of course he has the power to pass the temporary parliamentary acts. So of course even though he passed the temporary acts, it will have the same effect as the act of the parliament. Okay. And the last one, summon a joint session for the houses when there is a deadlock over a bill between the 2 houses of the parliament. So he can call for the joint session of both of the houses when there is a deadlock fixed for any bill between the 2 houses. Okay. And now we are going to see about the executive powers of the president. So the president has the power to appoint and remove the president. So he has the power to appoint as well as remove the prime minister. Okay, and then the power to appoint and remove the ministers. Power to appoint and remove the ministers from the Council of Ministers on the advice of the Prime Minister. So the president can remove the Council of Ministers on the advice of the Prime Minister. Okay, and then appointing the state governors and the members of Election Commission among the others on the advice of the Prime Minister. So you have to look at one thing very clearly, children. So the president will act upon the guidance of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. So the president, listen here, the president has the power to appoint and remove the Prime Minister, and at the same time the president can appoint and remove the Council of Ministers on the advice of the Prime Minister, and he has the power to appoint state governors and the election commissioners and other officials in the government. And now we are going to see about the judicial powers of the president. Okay, so the judicial powers mean, the first thing, grant pardon to a person convicted of any offence. So grant pardon means he can excuse. Okay, the president can excuse any person who are convicted any offence. Okay, and then second one, appointment of judges of Supreme Court and High Courts. So he can appoint the judges of Supreme Court and High Courts as well as the Attorney General. So who is this Attorney General? So Attorney General is a chief law officer. Okay. So he is a chief law officer and also he gives advice to the government. So Attorney General is a chief law officer and he used to give advice to the government. And now we are going to see about the emergency powers of the President, children. So the President has the power to declare the emergency. So we have three types of emergency, that is national emergency, state emergency, and then financial emergency. So first we will go for the national emergency. So when it will be declared, that means if the country's security is threatened by war. Okay, if we take India, 3 times a national emergency has been declared. Okay, so listen here. First of all, in 1962, the national emergency has been declared because there was a war between the China and India. Okay, so here there was a war between China and India, and in 1971 again the national emergency has been declared, and so one in 1962, and there was a war between India and China, and then 1971, and of course in this year also there was a war between India and Pakistan. Okay, and then in 1975 the emergency has been declared, but not by war, but here the situation was different, that due to some internal disturbance the emergency has been declared, and it was declared by the Prime Minister Mrs. Indira Gandhi. Okay, so this time due to some internal disturbances. Okay, so 3 times India experienced the national emergency. Okay, and now we are going to see about the state emergency, children. So the state emergency, it will declare when there is a breakdown in the constitutional machinery in any state. So if we take Tamil Nadu, there was a 4 times state emergency has been declared, and it was declared in the year 1976, and then 1980, and another time in 1988, and at last in 1991. So Tamil Nadu experienced 4 times the state emergency. So state emergency has been declared 4 times in the state of Tamil Nadu. And the last one is financial emergency, children. So the financial emergency has been it can be declared when there is a financial stability of the country is threatened. So regarding this financial emergency, so no such type of emergency has been declared so far in India. So we experienced only 2 type of emergency. So financial emergency so far we didn't face. India didn't face this financial emergency. So the President has the power to declare emergencies such as national emergency, state emergency, and financial emergency. Okay. So today children, you have learnt about the introduction of the Union Executive, and you also learnt about the major responsibility of Union Executive, and of course we learnt about the various powers of the President. So we will continue the remaining topics in the next session, children. To receive our online lessons, press subscribe button and you will get the latest updates. Thank you, children.